We'll be taking care of PV every day. Taking care of PV everywhere. We've been taking care of PV. It's all ours. Taking care of PV and investing in our town, PV.
Hi, I'm Ryan Judy, Deputy Town Manager for Prescott Valley. Welcome to PV in Focus. This is my dog, Doug. Yes, I named him after the dog from the movie Up. And this is Alayna Caswell, Animal Services Officer for Prescott Valley. We're going to talk about all things pets and things we can do to better take care of our best friends. So Alayna, what made you interested in being an animal services officer for Prescott Valley?
Well, I've always been very passionate about animals. I'm working on my veterinary degree right now through
Oh, that's
ASU.
amazing.
And I'd seen this job had an opening, and my parents, working for the town, pointed it out, and they said, why don't you just look at it and see what you think? And I ended up, looking into it, and it looked like something that I really wanted to do. So I decided to put in for it and ended up getting it, and I love it.
That's awesome. And your parents are both police officers for Prescott Valley, right? So it
Yes,
runs
sir.
in the family?
It runs in the family.
That's great. So what are some things that you're seeing as we head into the summertime in Prescott Valley? What kind of things can we do to keep our animals safe from the heat?
That would be just making sure you're always carrying water wherever you go if you are taking your dog out, even if you're leaving them in the backyard. Making sure that they always have access to water no matter what. And then when you're walking them out, don't walk them out during the prime time of the day when it's super hot. And then making sure, if you are going out and about and making stops around town, don't leave your dog in the car. Cars shut off. The dogs need AC, and even if you leave them in there for 5 minutes, it can get really dangerous for them. So that's never something that should happen. If you need to make stops while you're out and about with your dog, you should just leave your dog at home and make sure that they're safe.
So I know we get the question a lot from a Good Samaritan standpoint. Say you're walking through a parking lot and you see a dog that's in a car that you think is like super hot. What's the best approach? What can people do when they see that happening?
So when people see that happening, they can call right into dispatch, the town of Prescott Valley's dispatch, and we'll get dispatched out to go check on that dog, and we'll make sure right then and there, if the dog is okay, we'll get contact with the owner, and if the dog is not okay, we'll make sure to get the dog help immediately and take them to the emergency hospital. Leaving dogs in cars for extended periods of time can cause health concerns, and you can be charged for animal cruelty through the state and through the town if that is the case. So it's just really important to make sure that that never happens, that we're not leaving dogs ever in those cars or in those predicaments. And it really, just even people think, 5 minutes will be okay, and it's never okay. That heat rises really, really quick. So if you wouldn't leave your child in that car, don't leave your dog in that car.
I know we often get the question am I allowed to break the window and get the dog out myself?
So there
What is your
are
response
some
to
Good
that?
Samaritan laws that protect people, if they are truly trying to help out those animals and whatnot. But just make sure you contact law enforcement first, let them know, and we'll get on our way, and then we'll handle the situation and make sure that that dog is taken care of and that nothing happens to that dog. So just leave it up to us, and we'll make sure that they're taken care of. And yeah, you don't need to ever worry about breaking windows or anything. That's something that, you could leave up to us, and we'll make sure that it's done correctly so that nobody gets in trouble at all.
Okay, that's great to know, because I know you do get that question.
Yeah, we do.
So what's the most unusual animal that you've seen and had to deal with?
That I have had to deal with, the coati was a very interesting one, but we have dealt with 2 baby antelope as well.
I just saw that.
Yes, that one was very interesting. That's not something that we deal with very much. And then we do fairly often deal with raptors like red-tailed hawks and owls, especially now that it's baby season. Baby owls getting cut down out of trees or something. And those raptors, they go to Wild at Heart Raptor Rescue, and they'll take care of them. Or sometimes they go to Heritage Park Zoo, whoever can take them at the time. And then we do deal with skunks and raccoons, and they always get themselves into weird predicaments where they end up with us. And so they usually will go to Southwest Wildlife Conservation Center in Scottsdale.
Okay.
And they'll get taken care of there, and then they'll get released back out if they can be released back out. So any sort of wildlife encounters that we do, we will try and take care of it as much to our abilities. And then if we do need game and fish or any other outside resources, we'll use them. But wildlife, we're in a very wildlife rich area, so we need to respect them and take care of them and give them the environment that they need without putting them into predicaments where they could get hurt or end up hurting someone else.
And we have a pretty good relationship with the local zoo as well, right?
Yes,
Are there
Heritage
animals
Park.
that you take out there for
Yes.
for evaluation or rehabilitation?
Yes. So we have taken quite a few there, and they'll rehab stuff for us all the time. We just took a small American kestrel there.
Oh, wow.
And very, very cute. And so they'll do the same thing, rehabilitation, release them right where we found them at.
I know we've been talking about wild animal encounters, and I'm aware a number of years ago, probably 10 plus years ago, our police officers had to euthanize a rabid bobcat. So what can people do when they're out in nature to protect themselves?
Well, they can keep an eye out, make sure that they're staying away from wildlife, and when they do see wildlife, leave them alone. Don't try to feed them or approach them. They're wild animals. They're not friendly. They carry diseases, and especially rabies. You know, they're not rabies vaccinated like animals in our households typically are. So it's just really important to make sure that you just leave them alone, watch them from afar. And then if you do have any encounters where they continue to approach you, just be calm and quiet and slowly just back away from them and just respecting them, and most of the time they will just leave you alone.
I've heard, making lots of noise when you're hiking, hiking in pairs or with people, and if you have animals, making sure they're leashed so they're not liable to chase after. I know I have a poodle that whenever I'm walking with her and she sees deer, she wants to go live with them. She
Yes.
gets really excited.
Yes.
And if I didn't have her on a leash, yeah, she would be gone. I'm not sure
Yes.
we would see her again.
Yes, and that's why it's so important to have your dog on a leash. Even if there's nobody there, there's still wildlife. There's something that could distract a dog. And just keeping you safe and keeping your dog safe, that's really important, and that's the purpose of the leashes. And then carrying, I know some people will carry bear bells when they walk out on trails or bear spray. So just making sure, typically again, if they know that you're there, they'll leave you alone and they'll go away.
So I know Prescott just passed an ordinance about feeding wildlife. Talk to us about that, what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Yeah, so feeding wildlife, especially when you're at your residence, you're attracting wildlife into the area. And that's not okay. Wildlife, they belong in the wild, away from people, not in the city especially. And so it's important to let them stay where they're at and not rely on people. So just making sure we're not leaving any food or water out for them is really important, because again, we don't need any of those encounters, especially in the city. Those are not safe for anybody. And so just making sure you're not leaving anything out. So what is allowed is feeding squirrels and birds, and it needs to be up off the ground where your general wildlife, like deer and javelina, skunks especially, cannot reach it. So up in blocks or up in your trees. I know some people like to hang stuff in bird feeders. That is still okay. So that feeding is still okay, but any other feeding or watering or attracting of wildlife into the area is not allowed anymore.
And so people that have fruit trees that maybe drop a lot of apples or peaches, they should be picking up after that routinely. Otherwise, they'll probably see more animal encounters, I'm sure.
Yes, they
Javelina,
will,
love
especially
those.
javelina. They're very destructive, and especially when they get into neighborhoods and whatnot, they're not always sure how to get out, and so they can get a little agitated and aggressive. So if people's dogs are out and the dogs want to go mess with them, they're just not safe to have around people. And so it's really important, pick up after your property, try not to entice any animals to come to your property. If they are on your property, you have nothing there, just leave them alone, don't mess with them, don't feed them or anything. So
Let's talk about our domestic animals. What are some things you're seeing what can we do to help take better care of our own pets?
it would be making sure like you have a very secure fence line for your backyard so that the dogs don't get out while you're at work. It makes it really hard if we can't contact you and your dog's out. Making sure that your dog is microchipped and has a collar on and has the town licensing on the collar. That would be a valid license through the town. We can contact you immediately once we do get a hold of your dog, and it speeds up the process of people getting their dogs home. So just being in compliance with the licensing helps us out so much and keeps dogs safe and off the streets. And we get them home a lot sooner if we do that. So just making sure those fence lines, licensing, and your dog is up to date on rabies vaccinations, all the precautionary, and you typically really won't see us.
So I know we get lots of calls about barking dogs. So what is that a symptom of if a dog is constantly barking, and what can people do, especially if they're away from home during the day, to help comfort their animals?
Yeah, so just making sure, especially as it's hot outside, don't leave the dogs outside for extended periods of time. I know people have work and whatnot, so just making sure that they're not outside. You can give them something to do, treats, toys, whatnot. There's a lot of stuff to keep them occupied while you're gone. And just being considerate to your neighbors. Sometimes people work night shifts and they're sleeping during the day, or some people are retired and they want to sleep when they want to. And so just being considerate, you know, sometimes people don't know that their dogs are barking when they're gone, and if you're a neighbor, you can just, you know, if you have their phone number, or knock on their door, just say, hey, by the way, your dog's barking. If you could, you know, and if that doesn't work, you can always submit a barking complaint through the Town of Prescott Valley's website, and we'll go serve a complaint. But just being considerate to your neighbors and making sure that your dog is well taken care for, and typically it won't happen again. And I get it, dogs want to bark, you know, they see a bunch of cool things, but it should not exceed 5 minutes. That is what our ordinance states. So a bark here and there because they're excited and their dogs is absolutely okay, but once it hits the 5 minutes, it's just a nuisance, and it's not fair to your neighbors. Your neighbors didn't decide to have a barking dog, you know, they didn't want a barking dog or a dog in general if they don't have any. So they don't, you know, they don't want to listen to it, especially if you are gone at work or they have stuff going on and they want to sleep during the day or whatnot.
So do you rescue cats in trees, or do you leave that to the firefighters to take care of?
Well, anything animal related, and we'll go. So we do have, especially as it gets towards kitten season, we do get some animals in some weird predicaments under sheds where they like to put their kittens and whatnot. So no, anything animal related, like we will do what we can with what we have available to us. So we'll handle domestic animals, wild animals, livestock, all of the sort.
Includes snakes as well, right?
Including
your snake
snakes.
charmers.
Yes, we do remove snakes. So when people do have snakes on their property, especially rattlesnakes, we will remove them and place them somewhere else where they're safer and away from people. So just making sure, you know, that people don't have those on their property or where they can't see them. I know rattlesnakes like to sit, you know, right below the door frame where it's nice and warm. So just keeping an eye out on where those guys are, but we will remove them. So just calling into dispatch and letting us know that it's there, and we'll come and take it out of the property.
And like you mentioned earlier, so important to be aware of your surroundings. I was hiking Granite Mountain a couple of weeks ago, just hiking along happily, and all of a sudden I heard it ch-ch-ch-ch-ch, and I looked down, and sure enough, there was an Arizona black rattlesnake right in front of me. He wasn't coiled, ready to bite, but he was just warning me off. And that's what I've heard about snakes. You know, they don't want to bite you. You know, we're too big to eat for those guys. But so we just need to respect them and
just
and
respecting them and not messing around with them, or making sure kids don't end up playing around with them. And the larger rattlesnakes, they're really respectful. They'll warn you and whatnot. Those babies, when they're really fresh, they don't really have a rattle. So just keeping an eye out in your surroundings and making sure. And I know they're hard to see when they're really small, but just keeping an eye out, making sure that your dogs don't get a hold of them or that your kids don't get a hold of them. And especially with snake season coming in, and you know, and they're coming out really little baby rattlesnakes right now. So.
And they're beneficial for the environment, right? They take care of rodents and other things for us. So.
Yes, and they're naturally here. They're here for a reason, and yes, they do help with rodents and all the sort, and so they have their purpose. And so just respecting them and leaving them alone, and we can safely remove them. We're fully trained to do that, to make sure that nobody else gets hurt in the process.
Awesome, that's great to know. All right, Alayna, well, I think that's probably a wrap for today, so I appreciate your time talking about nature and wild animals and domestic animals. We appreciate all that you do for the town of Prescott Valley.
Of course, thank you for inviting me on.
All right, thank you. So with that, I think that's a wrap. We will see you next time.
We'll be taking care of PV.